Hey, what's up everyone? Nick here. Welcome back to the Batman Arkham Knight story-related DLC, and believe it or not, we're actually moving on to what I consider the hardest of the DLC episodes. Not only that, I consider this to be probably the hardest moment in Arkham franchise history.
So unless Eddie's informant was lying to me, the entrance to Riddler's robot factory is hidden in here. Keycards on the goons. Of course. Eddie's in prison and he's still wasting my time. Can't let him see me. Easy.
Alright, so hopefully I piqued your interest in the beginning of this video by starting with that very broad claim that this is what I consider the hardest part in anything in the Arkham franchise history. Yeah, it's a pretty broad claim, so let's break this down. Let's start with what are we doing? This is another Arkham DLC. This is Catwoman's revenge. If you remember, during the main game of Arkham Knight, Riddler took her hostage, and that was kind of one of the things that Batman had to deal with. Aside from solving all the Riddler challenges, every time he solved a certain number of challenges, he was able to help rescue Catwoman. And so what we're doing now is we are exacting our revenge, you know, so this takes place after the events of the main game. We're playing as Catwoman, and, you know, we know her. She's not going to take this sitting down. She's going to get some revenge on Edward Nygma. And so to start the DLC, you're going to be in this stealth encounter right here, and 3 of the enemies are going to have key cards. And what you're looking for, if you look at this enemy right below me, you'll see this orange flash coming from his belt. That's the sign that the enemy has a key card. So we already have 2 of 3. The last one we need is going to be on one of these enemies that we started right next to. They were all kind of grouped together and talking with each other. But eventually, if you take some time to get the first 2, eventually they will spread out. You'll see this third one isolates himself perfectly, allowing us to get the 3rd key card. And now we can go right back to the control room where we started. It's right through this vent here. You'll be given an objective indicator. So go ahead and drop down and trigger that.
Come on, come on. 3 keys. Why is it always 3 keys? Here we go.
Someone's here! All of you, keep your eyes open and find them.
Great. Better take them out before heading in.
Alright, so in essence, this is very similar to the other Arkham. This is very similar to the other DLCs. You know, we are playing as a different character. We start off with a Predator challenge, then we'll move on to a combat encounter, and that's basically the end of it. You know, it's the same length as the other ones, about 15 to 20 minutes. And so you might be wondering, you know, Nick, how can you say that this is the most difficult thing in Arkham franchise history? Because so far it looks pretty simple, and you know, you're taking into account Arkham Origins, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight. How could this be harder than any of the boss fights, any of the Predator encounters? How could this be difficult? And I probably should have rephrased it. So it's not this total DLC that's very difficult. In fact, the majority of it is very simple, very easy. The problem comes at the very end. At the very end of this DLC, there is one particular combat encounter, which is, it's just the hardest fight in anything Arkham related, in my opinion. I died so many times. In fact, you know, I played this DLC a long time ago before I had a YouTube channel, and I remember it took me a long time to beat this one because of that fight at the end, and so that's kind of why I saved this DLC for last, or at least near to last, because honestly I was just dreading having to play this one again. And I still, you know, still years later, all the experience I've racked up in these games, I still had a very hard time with this fight. To give you some perspective, you know, this video is about 15 minutes long. The actual unedited recorded video is 50 minutes long. So there was 35 minutes of nothing but me dying in that fight. I died more in that one fight than I probably died during my whole recording of the Knightmare difficulty walkthrough. It's quite ridiculous, and you'll see exactly what makes it such a tough fight once we get to it. But just to kind of, you know, pique your interest, it just has so many moving parts. You're fighting more enemies than you've ever fought before in a fight. Well, not literally, but you're fighting a lot of enemies, and there's also some environmental hazards that are going to make the fight incredibly difficult. But luckily, like I said, that doesn't come in until the end of this DLC. So first things first, we have to finish this Predator encounter. And actually, once this video goes live, I'll be pretty close to being done with all of the DLC. I'll be done with all of the short episodes. So all of the ones I've done so far, Red Hood, Harley, Nightwing, Robin, Catwoman, they've all been pretty short, you know, 15 to 20 minutes long. The only one that I've been saving for last is the Batgirl DLC, because that's actually like a 45 to 50 minute adventure. It's a pretty long DLC. If I remember correctly, it was actually the first DLC that came out. It was like a big deal. That was the one that a lot of people were looking forward to, particularly because you might be wondering, and again, I'll talk about this more when we actually get to that video, but if you remember, you know, throughout the Arkham games, there's been this character named Oracle, Barbara Gordon, and I've told you that she used to be Batgirl until the events of the Killing Joke took place, where Joker paralyzed her, confounded her to a wheelchair, and thus she became the Oracle, helping behind the scenes from a technological side. But so the thing that makes the Batgirl DLC interesting is it actually takes place before Arkham Asylum. So it takes place way before all of these games. And so it features Batgirl before the incident, before she became Oracle. And it's really the first time in the franchise's history where we get to see her in action, you know, other than being Oracle. In fact, if you remember, it wasn't until this game, Arkham Knight, that we actually saw her in person for the first time as an adult. We did see her once in Arkham Origins as a teenager, but that was, I don't know if I count that, because she wasn't yet working for Batman or anything, although she did help Batman in that game, which was pretty cool. Anyway, as for this Predator encounter, it's pretty simple. This room is very easy to navigate. It's a giant room. The enemies will pretty much naturally disperse from each other, so that makes things easy. And you'll see there's a lot of ceilings that you can pounce up to. And then also keep a note on these vents. So you'll see I'm about to come to another vent, and you'll see the last two enemies are right above me. So I can kind of utilize this vent to get a quick kill. Unfortunately, I think I messed it up because I didn't know what enemy to go for. So right here, I could have probably, looking back at this, they're right next to each other. I probably could have gotten a double takedown, or I could have just ran over and, you know, took them out the old-fashioned way. But I didn't want to do that because so far this Predator encounter has been perfect. They haven't once seen me, and I wanted to kind of try to keep that trend alive. So that guy's going to drop down. I'm going to go get his buddy over here. And then, as I point out a lot, I'm actually going to do a knockout smash here, because that will produce some noise, and then the other guy will naturally come over to investigate. So, little trick you can use to your advantage. Instead of you going to the enemy, just cause a little bit of noise and bring the enemy to you. Just little tricks like that can make things go by a little quicker. And now this is the last guy, so I'm going to do another knockout smash, since the noise doesn't matter. And that'll be it.
Okay, that's the idiots taken care of. Now for the door.
Alright, so now you're going to follow your objective indicator. You're going to see it cut in the video right here, because there's a puzzle that you have to solve, and I'm not going to go through the steps of solving it. I'm just going to show you the final solution, and if you're curious, I'll tell you how you do it. But you'll see these four statues here. There's a robot, there's a Oscar-looking thing, there's like a trolley car or ski lift car, and then another thing on the right. And so each of these symbols, each of these objects is actually located around the toy store, and each one will have a number on it. So this gold statue is actually right next to the puzzle, and it has a number 3 on it. So that tells you that it's the third one you have to pull. Again, you can find all 4 of those objects littered around the toy store. Each one will have a number on it, and that number just tells you the order in which you need to activate each of the 4 statues. So not very hard to figure out. That's why I figured I could skip it. Anyway, now we are beneath the toy store, and this is kind of the Riddler's hideout. And this is where things are about to get a bit tougher. So we're going to drop down into this area here. Get used to this area, because this is where I spent 35 minutes dying. Fortunately, not yet. There's still a couple easy sections left.
What?
Hey, Eddie.
Catwoman.
Aren't you in prison?
Ha! No prison can hold me. Hang on a second. Why, yes, Officer Cash. I'm just talking to my lawyer. Get out!
So there you can see that the Riddler is actually locked up, but he's actually he's controlling this whole facility remotely from wherever he is, which is kind of cool.
No! I don't approve of that.
And so Catwoman's plan here is to steal all his money and destroy all his resources. So to fight back, Riddler's going to activate more of these Riddler robots that we came across in the main game. So first things first, you're going to have to fight 2 waves of these guys. Pretty simple. This is child's play. We've done this so many times. So again, you still might be wondering, Nick, how can you claim that this is the hardest? How can you claim that this is the hardest section in the entire Arkham franchise? Well, just wait for it. You'll see. So there we go. There's the first wave of enemies defeated. Now comes a little obstacle. This is actually kind of fun. You'll see these rotating blades coming at you, and you have to kind of you have to get through the gap. The blades will shift, and then you'll have to get through the gap once more. Anytime there's anytime there's something like this in a game where you have to dodge these death traps, I always think of the first Resident Evil movie, the laser hallway. I remember seeing that as a kid, and I always liked that scene. I thought it was just one of the craziest things I'd ever seen. And then I remember they revisited that concept in Resident Evil 4, albeit it was very kind of just thrown in there really randomly. Anyway, that's not the point. That's not the point of this video. Here come the next wave of robot enemies. And again, this is still just a pretty standard fight, although now I'm going to start talking about what makes the next part so hard. So now you can see that there's these 2 lasers coming from above, and these things are just kind of being guided along the floor, and as your instincts would tell you, those lasers will hurt you. They actually will cause a significant amount of damage. So now you can see things are getting a bit more difficult. We have to fight all these robots, all while being vigilant of where the lasers are at any given time, because if you run into the laser, not only will it hurt you, it will also disrupt your combo and just kind of mess up your free flow. So that makes things tougher. Now, after this fight, that's when we're going to get into the hardest fight of the entire Arkham franchise. And the thing that gets added is there's going to be 3 waves of robots, the 2 lasers, and if you notice, the floor is all made up of these square panels. One by one, the square panels will become electrocuted, and until eventually, all of them but the 4 in the center will become electrocuted. So if you do not complete the fight quickly enough, you're going to have to do the entire fight within 4 of these squares, and that is very, very tough to do for a number of reasons, which I'll explain when we get into this fight. So here we go, guys. This is the hardest fight in Arkham franchise history, in my opinion. So you're going to see a cut in the video, because you will get a checkpoint right here. And here we go. So what you're going to want to do is you have to do this fight quickly. So just don't waste any time. Run over to these robots and just start mashing the square button or the X button if you're on Xbox. For the time being, try not to focus on doing special combos. Try not to focus on doing any instant takedowns, because those take more time. What you're trying to do right now is you're just trying to rapidly mash the square button, get around the room as quickly as possible, and just try to get through that first initial wave as fast as you can. You'll notice now those squares on the outer perimeter, you can see how they're glowing green. That means that they are now electrocuted. So if you step on those squares, it will hurt you and it will disrupt your combo. So all the while, you have to fight these robots, you have to dodge the red lasers, and you have to dodge those green squares. And once a square becomes electrocuted, it remains electrocuted. It doesn't just stop after a short amount of time. So your goal here is to just take out as many of these guys as you can, as fast as you can. That's the only thing. And it sounds easy, but it's very, very difficult. Now, once you get to this point where you start getting a bit claustrophobic, one of Catwoman's moves that will really come in handy is X circle, or A, B if you're playing on Xbox. Basically, she does this swing around thing with her whip, and it will knock down a ton of enemies all surrounding you, and that's a really good way to build up your combo and knock down a lot of enemies. But yeah, guys, the number one strategy for this fight is speed. You have to take these guys out as quickly as possible. Try not to waste too many times with instant takedowns. Try not to waste too many times with counters, because those all slow down the time. Now, the thing that makes this extra difficult is sometimes when you go to counter an enemy, so there you go, that's the fight. And again, I might have made it look really easy, but trust me, I spent 35 minutes dying in that fight. It took me quite a bit of time. It just takes practice. There's no other trick. It's just practice, maybe a bit of luck, and a lot of speed. So hopefully you guys can get through that. Go ahead and enjoy the closing cutscene, and then I will join you at the end.
Eddie, you're not going to need $2.73 million in jail, are you? They feed you for free.
Stop!
And what are you going to do with a robot factory while you're in there? Arrange some sort of elaborate prison break?
Please, please. Do you want me to beg? I can beg. Mercy. Mercy. Please.
All right, Enigma, time you calm down. Get off the phone.
Bye-bye, Eddie.
Unhand and unhook me, you authoritarian attack dog! Oh, a taser? You think a taser frightens me? I am the Riddler, and you will not...
Alright guys, there you go. That is the end of the Catwoman DLC. I hope you enjoyed. As always, let me know what you thought of the comments down below. Did that fight look hard, or did I make it look easy? Remember, I died a lot, so either way, it's not that impressive. Anyway, thank you guys. I'll see you later.